Pickleball Diaries presents Cling on the Court with your host, Lily Brown. Let's go!
Hi everyone, welcome to Cling on the Court again. Let's cracking some pickleball code again with our coach Jeff. And welcome, Jeff.
Thanks for having me again, Lily. Looking forward to another chat about aggressive play and
Yes.
specifically the third shot drive and fifth shot drive.
Oh gosh, yes. We're talking about a very exciting topic today, which is the new trending combo, drive and drive and drive. So, and then before we go into these golden content, please subscribe and follow us on YouTube, and you also can subscribe us on all sorts of um, uh, podcast platforms as long as you search for Clean, and you will find us there. Okay, so let's dive into the topic today. So, Jeff, can you kind of explain this combo of drive and drive and drive versus the classic way of the drive and drop?
Yeah. So, well, yeah, in today's game, as we've discussed before on previous episodes, the game's getting a little bit faster, and a lot of that is due to paddle technology. So the capability of hitting hard is much greater now because the paddles are much more powerful. And in fact, like one of the paddle companies just came out with a paddle called the Boomstick, which just by its name itself implies like a lot of power. So the capability of the paddles has changed a lot over the last year or two. So you're able to generate a lot of speed off these new, more modern paddles. And then the game's just evolved as well. So people are, the idea of hitting hard or hitting harder, the idea behind that is giving your opponents less time to react. So the reason we hit hard is because we want to give our opponents less time to react to a volley, let's say, and we want to shrink the amount of time that they have to respond in the hopes that they either miss more or give us a weaker ball in return, which in an ideal world, we can then hit hard again to keep the pressure on and keep them feeling rushed and make them feel like they don't have a lot of time. So we are seeing sometimes more like a drive-drive combo than we used to. And part of that is it's the paddle technology and the game evolving. The ball's coming so fast off the paddle. Sorry, the ball's coming so fast off the paddle that the net players just have less time to react. So often where we might have driven the ball before on our third shot and then dropped the fifth, sometimes if we get a weak fourth shot from our opponents where the ball is short and also sits up a little higher, it might actually provide a lot of opportunity to drive the fifth from close range and really put your opponents under pressure at the net. So we're seeing that a little more often. And again, it's partially evolution of the game, and it's also partially evolution of the paddles.
Yeah, yeah. So would you help us to um, analysis, like in what situation we should like drive and drop? Like what situation we just keep on driving?
Yeah, so there's a few, and we discussed in some recent episodes, like some key elements of having good decision-making skills. So there's different factors that affect what shot we choose to hit, right? So there's our own capability, so our own strengths and weaknesses. There's the strengths and weaknesses of the opponents, and then there's the ball we receive, right? So if we're really good at driving, so if we have a good drive and we like to play aggressive, that can be a strategy or tactic that we want to use. So we can drive our third and then look to drive the fifth. However, there might be situations where the fourth shot from our opponents is really good. So really good meaning they keep the ball low and they hit it back with a lot of pace. So it's low, it's fast, and now we don't have a lot of time to react. So we just drove our third shot, but the fourth shot comes back really fast, really low. That's going to be a really tough ball to drive and be consistent. And even if you're consistent and make the shot, being effective is another thing. So we probably don't want to try and drive an aggressive fourth shot from our opponents with our fifth because it doesn't make sense. We're not going to be able to execute with consistency, and we're probably not going to be able to be effective even if we get the ball over the net. So the right time to drop, usually we want to drop the fifth if the ball comes back really low, or if the ball comes back low and fast, or if the ball puts us in an awkward position where having good balance setup is not possible. Because usually, if we're driving our fifth, we need to have a ball that gives us time to set our body and paddle up. We need to be balanced. And ideally, we have a ball that's sort of sitting up a little higher so that it's easy to execute a fifth shot drive. And if those conditions aren't met by the ball we receive, we probably shouldn't drive. We should probably elect to drop, play soft and like a little safer or easier shot to execute, play soft, and then make our way into the non-volley zone. So that's one thing that affects our decision whether to drop or drive the fifth. The other could be if you're playing people who have exceptional volley skills, like they're really quick at the net, they block fastballs exceptionally well, and they counter really well. You may not want to speed up at them because they're going to slam the ball back at you really just as fast as it arrived on their paddle. It comes back just as fast, and now you're almost defensive on your fifth. So you may not actually want to try and pressure those types of players because they're going to make you pay for it if you do it at the wrong time.
Oh, I totally agree. I think one of the reasons it's really motivating me to talk about this topic today, because I had an interesting conversation in my club with a player. We played a game together, and then she keep driving, and then the drive is so high, we got like really hit. We couldn't get closer to the kitchen. And then she always have a very amazing like drop. And I was like,
Mhm.
why are you suddenly keep driving like this? She said because she went to a tournament and her partner pressure her, said, you have to drive. Do you know driving is a trend now? You you have to drive. And then I said, yeah, but like when you haven't developed the drive, you cannot just say, now I need to drive. You need to develop the right drive and then use in the game situation. If the drive is too high, like it's not just like we need to drive, right? We need to develop
Mhm.
the right technique. So with that, do you mind explain to us like when we do, what will be a very effective drive? Say like our opponent is already at the kitchen, what kind of drive we should like there's like also people talking about the drip or drive?
Yeah.
Is it more about the pace, the placement? Um,
Yeah.
can you
So you
shed
can
some light on that?
For sure. Like with a drive or any shot, like there's different elements of the shot that could make it effective. It could be the direction you send the ball. So maybe you hit it to the weaker player, and that alone makes it effective. But usually when we're talking about a drive, it's a combination of like where you place the ball. So maybe hitting to the weaker player, hitting to an open space, or hitting to a weaker spot on a particular player. Like maybe they have a really weak backhand, or maybe they have an extreme Western grip on their forehand. So you want to drive the ball at their forehand because they can't volley with that grip very well. So placement is important, but usually the most critical factor I would argue is the trajectory of your drive. Because even if you hit the drive to a really solid player or the stronger player, as long as you keep the ball low over the net, they're going to be pretty limited in what they can do back to you. So keeping the ball low is probably the priority. And then if you can keep the ball low and hit it to either an open space or a weaker side of a particular opponent or to a weak player, that would be the ultimate combination is precision. So direction combined with a low drive. That's the ultimate combination. And then adding to that is sometimes if your drive is to the player who's maybe farther away, sometimes that can be beneficial because even if they make a good play on the ball, they're farther back, so they're not going to be able to hurt you as much because they're farther away from the net. And if they're farther away from the net, you also have a better chance of getting the ball to drop lower. The ball has more time to come down and maybe get at their feet, which makes them play a more defensive shot, which creates potentially another offensive high ball for you and your partner at the non-volley zone. So yeah, and then when you mentioned the drip, the reason the drip is effective, there's a couple of reasons. Usually, if we're talking about a drip, it's like a hybrid shot that has a bit more topspin. So it might be a bit slower, but it's diving over the net and hopefully going lower by the time it reaches your opponent's paddle. So it forces them to hit up on the ball. And the other benefit of a drip or a ball that sort of spins lower Usually, if it's a bit slower, it's not like a really fast, flat drive. It gives you a little bit more time to move forward for the next shot. So that's the benefit of the drip is it gives you a bit more time. And if you've executed it well, it makes the opponent's hit from below the net. So those are some considerations about what makes a drive effective. And
Mm-hmm.
then the question is, do you have the skills to do those things, right? Like, driving, speeding up a ball with a third shot drive and looking to drive the fifth, that could be disastrous for some players at a more intermediate level. Because basically, to put it simply, the harder we try to hit the ball, the more skill it is required to execute that shot and A, get it in the court, and B, make sure it's effective. Like you can place it well and keep it low. So if you don't have those skills, like it's not a good tactic, you know.
Then
Um,
don't do it. Don't do
don't do
it.
it or be really selective about when you do it. Make sure you only do it when the ball is really, really
Yeah.
slow, really easy, maybe short, sitting up high off the bounce. Okay, that's a good time to drive. And even if you're not the most skillful driver, if the ball's really slow and easy, you have lots of time to prepare and it's easier to have good timing on a slow ball. But if you don't have those skills, it's not the right tactic. You're probably better off trying to play a softer sort of low drop or something like that. And as I've mentioned in the past, like what tactics you use also depends on your partner's skill set. So I'll give you a quick example. The last tournament I played here in Ottawa was the APA tournament at the Forge, and my partner was Mikhail Gaumont. And if you may be familiar with him because he's played in the CNPL last year and he's playing this year again for the Prairie Pronghorns. But Mikhail is known for having amazing defensive skills and really good soft game. Like he's a really steady player and you can kind of depend on him to have great resets and drops from transition area, like really good drops from the baseline. So I felt very confident that I could drive my forehand a lot on the third shot, which is a shot I really like, and it's one of my strengths, and I trust it. But I also feel with a partner like him, I know that even if the other team counters my drive with their fourth shot volley really well, and they pressure him with a good fourth shot counter punch, I really know that Mikhail can handle that shot and then hit a good soft fifth shot. Um, and then I know also if I create something off of my third shot drive, he still has the skills to finish if we get a high ball, and so do I. So I felt very trusting of him because he has those skills that I could drive. And even if they responded with a counter, he'd be okay. Now, if I'm playing with a player who's not great from transition and doesn't have a good reset, maybe I don't want to drive as much because it's just going to put my partner under pressure if the other team counters with a strong fourth shot volley. So I may elect to drop my thirds more. So yeah, that's just an example of those are some things you need to take into account if you'd like to try and drive the third and then drive the fifth. And that might be a great strategy. Like if you're playing teams that are really don't like to volley or they're like a little apprehensive at the non-volley zone and you can tell they're fearful or they don't react on time when you drive the ball at them, it could be a really good strategy, but you have to make sure you have the skills to do it. And you have to make sure your partner and yourself have skills to hit good resets in the event that their fourth shot is really effective. So
Hmm.
yeah.
So, with I really like what you said. Is you have to judge your capability. It's not just
Mhm.
like, oh, it sounds like a good trend. I need to follow the suit, but you have to judge if you're capable of doing that or not, the quality of the shot, right? So with the drive, like what will be the ideal uh like body position you want to drive to? And I want to give one example, and like there's one player, and she just like drive every ball, and she really likes to drive to the middle. So
Mhm.
even if like you know the ball is going out, but you don't have enough time to kind of get out of it, get out of the way. So it's kind of effective and also it's intimidating on the other side. And in the rec play, of course, other players they don't like it because it's constantly attack you. But it could be very effective in the tournament play. Like, what do you think?
Yeah, using the drive.
Yeah, to the middle of the body, like
Ye- Yeah,
target, literally target other people.
yeah, it's a good question. And again, all of these, the answers to most of these types of questions always have a depends. It
Yeah.
depends on X or it depends on Y. So there's different variables that you need to consider. So I'll give you an example. In that same tournament I reference, I specifically remember driving. I was playing the left side a lot because we were stacking, and so I was driving a lot, either up the middle or one particular match. I remember we were playing Matt Kawamoto and Ernesto, who are really high level players. And
Yeah.
I was driving the ball right at Matthew's body, straight ahead, and it didn't challenge him at all because he does have really good block volleys. And what he would do is when I drove the ball at him, he just had his backhand waiting, and he just blocked his fourth shot straight back to me. But he was good at keeping it pretty low and sort of like low with a bit of speed and pretty deep. And so it kept me back after the drive. It wasn't producing weak balls and it wasn't forcing him to pop the ball up. So
Hmm.
like that's an example of going at the body of a capable player wasn't the right tactic because it wasn't effective. And then what was more effective sometimes against that particular team was going up the middle because it caused maybe, depending on who went for the ball, they had to sort of take a step towards the middle, so they move a little bit. And it also might create some uncertainty about which player should take the ball. So I found that shot to be a bit more effective. So the answer is it depends. Like some people don't react well when you go at their body. They're not sure whether they should use their forehand or backhand. And if you kind of sense that, you can test them out early in the match, see how they handle it. And if it looks like they're not reacting well, keep doing it. But a lot of players, when you drive at them, they just sit on their backhand. So they just prepare their paddle on their backhand and they block it well, really, really well back at you. So it kind of depends. So going up the middle sometimes is a good option because it at least makes people take a bit of a step to the side to play the ball in the middle, and forcing your opponent to have to move before they volley just makes it more difficult to execute the volley sometimes. It can cause confusion. So sometimes that's a good place to go. It's also low risk. If you aim up the middle and you're off a little bit with your direction, the ball's still going in the court. Sometimes if you go down the line and you miss it a little bit wide, it goes out. So anyways, yeah, the answer is it depends. Test people out, like go at them and see how they handle it. Some people will pass the test and then you find out like going at their body is not the right tactic. So you got to mix it up, or maybe you go at them, but go maybe on the right side. So jam them with like what people call a chicken wing. Go like a little bit high on the right side where it's hard for them to get out of the way and clear space on their forehand. Or even if they try to play a backhand high on the right side, they're less effective. So you might have to be a little bit more targeted with when you go at the body, like pick a particular part of the body to go at.
Yeah, I totally agree. And once again, like I like to recap what Jeff just saying, highlight what a golden nugget right here is you have to judge the weakness. It's not you have one formula fits all and you judge their weakness and then you attack on that weakness. And yeah, like kind of echo a little bit, we were talking about the singles, and I actually been practicing a lot of and playing a lot of singles
Mhm.
recently because life is so busy. I couldn't find four people. But one strategy actually I used yesterday in my doubles game, actually, I kind of inspired by playing singles, is even in the doubles game, and I will return to the player's backhand relatively, not super backhand, but a lot of people when it's like slightly on the backhand, they don't like to hit backhand. They run around to hit with their forehand.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like I use that to move them out of the position.
Mhm.
And then I have an open place and I will drive to that open place.
Yeah.
And even when they come faster enough to the kitchen, but there's an open place, I find I can drive over there. So yeah,
Mhm.
that's like something I find I use that in the singles. Now I'm using that in the doubles. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good tactic.
yeah, thank you. So so back to the partners. When you do drive aggressive play, what your partner's supposed to be, like what your partner's
Yeah.
supposed to be watching and be prepared.
Yeah, often. So if you're a smart team and you know you're fairly tactically aware as a partnership, if both players have reasonably good tactical awareness and know each other's games, if let's say for instance you hit a big serve and you create a weak return, and let's say that the left side player from the serving team gets a weak return, as the partner, you can be pretty sure that that player is going to drive the ball. So you can take a step forward, anticipating or trying to put a little bit of pressure on the other team. But how far forward you go depends a little bit on how much you trust your partner to drive the ball low and hit a good drive. But you do want to move forward and sort of start to put some pressure on the other team so that A, they feel your presence. So they sort of feel you in front of them. And maybe you're crowding the middle a little bit more so that you can capitalize on a pop-up and do something aggressive on the fifth if it happens. Um, so as the partner who's not hitting the third shot drive, you want to move forward. And as you're moving forward, really watch carefully the trajectory and placement of that drive. And if it's a really good drive that's staying low, you can move forward a little bit more because you know that the next ball will probably be weaker. Not for sure, but probably be weaker. And then you want to be in a position to maybe like shake and bake and capitalize on that shot. But you need those skills, right? Like shake and bake or like drive and crash. You have to have very quick reflexes. You have to read the play really well, and you better have really, really quick hands if you're the partner who's crashing. Um, but then it depends, like, if you're looking to drive the third and you're like, let's say when I was playing with Mikhail again, who was really good at fifth shot drops, like it's okay if we sort of drive to create a weak fourth shot and then hit a nice, effective fifth shot drop. That's a different strategy than drive and drive, but it suits his style really well. And because his drops are really good, he can hit them in a way that makes life really miserable for the other team because he's really good at dropping the fifth into awkward spots, really soft, really low, unattackable. And now we're almost guaranteed to at least start the point in neutral and at least limit the ability of the other team to attack us. So with someone like him as a partner, it's maybe less about drive and crash and more like drive. He takes a step forward, like one or two steps forward to sort of around transition zone, and he's more looking to set up for a fifth shot drop unless there's a really obvious chance to attack the fifth shot because they pop the ball up. So it depends a little bit on who your partner is and what their skill set is. But if you're the non-hitting partner, you're really looking at your partner driving that third shot and trying to make a quick calculation. Do you move forward a little more to take up space and take away time? Or do you sort of just creep forward slowly, more looking for the fifth shot drop? And again, it really depends on the skill set and the strengths and weaknesses of you and your partner.
Yeah. So by saying that, and you probably should, before the game, even the rec game, probably you should communicate with your partner
Yeah.
and tell them like what you will be doing. I find that's in rec play, people are kind of shy from that. They don't communicate before the game, especially they not familiar with each other. And some people default to their comfort shot is drive or their comfort shot is drop. Probably that
Mhm.
would be good to tell your partner, okay, like, usually I drive my third, or usually I drop my third and where I will be driving to. So, like,
Yeah.
do you think I'll be like helpful in the rec game?
So helpful. Like game planning and talking about what you want to do or what you're comfortable doing. And that can be based more just on you. Like, so maybe you don't know your opponents, so you don't know what their strengths and weaknesses are. So you really focus your game plan on your own strengths and weaknesses and talk about it. And if you know your opponents really well, then maybe that affects your game plan in a different way. But again, using my partner, Mikhail, just because it's a recent tournament, like he's really good at third shot drops. And like, I know if he hits a third shot drop, like he doesn't pop them up very much because he's good at it. So if he's like, hey, like I'm more comfortable dropping, like I'm like, great, that's your strength, use it. Like even if the other team has weak volleys, it's still the right game plan because it suits his strengths. And then I know when he hits a good drop, I'll start to creep forward and I'll really be looking. And if it's low, I'll really crowd the non-volley zone and probably shift over to the middle to really make that person receiving his third shot drop, make them feel my presence and hopefully make them feel a bit apprehensive because they sense me like stalking the middle of the court,
Yeah.
hoping that they pop the ball up. And that's a really good combination of like effective third shot and then the other player crowding the middle and the non-volley zone. And again, that's an example of a game plan suited to our strengths. Um, and then, for me, I like to drive the ball. So I might tell him like, hey, I'm going to drive most of my thirds unless it's an awkward shot. And I feel like the drop is um, more sensible. And he might say, okay, great. I'm not, but just so you know, I'm not going to crash too hard. I like to sort of creep in and go more for a fifth shot drop unless there's an obvious attacking opportunity. And it's like, okay, great. That suits our game style really well. Maybe we'll get some free points off my drive occasionally. But if not, hopefully we'll get some easier, weaker fourth shots from the opponents where our fifth shot is now easier to execute. So yeah, so you always want a game plan. And again, the game plan's mostly going to revolve around your skill set and what you're comfortable doing as a team and as individuals. And then if you know your opponents, you should tailor it a little bit to their strengths and weaknesses. And then sometimes there's the environmental factors. If you're playing outdoors and there's a lot of wind, you might drive the ball a lot more because if you drop, the wind can really affect your drop heavily. So you might drive the ball more to cut through the wind. Anyways, that's a different topic, but you should always have a game plan and make sure your game plan fits your skill set as a team.
Yeah. So when you use like these kind of more aggressive combo drive and drive, do you drive straight ahead or would you consider even drive cross court?
It's Yeah, so driving usually if you want your partner, so that the non-driver, whoever's not hitting the drive, if you want them to have an easier time being prepared for the next ball, so being prepared for the fifth, it's better to drive straight on or more through the middle. Generally speaking, when you drive cross court, so let's say I'm driving from the left side and I drive the ball cross court to the left side player on the other team. If my partner's moving forward, it's watch and cut to watch the ball go to the left side player. Now it's right in front of them, but their head had to turn a lot as that's happening. And that's really tough for that player. So it's much easier if you drive as the left side player, drive straight up the middle. Your right side partner has a better field of vision for the ball, staying more sort of in front of their field of vision without them having to turn their head too much.
Mhm.
So it's a little bit easier for them to see how the point is going to unfold after you drive your third. So, you know, so as a rule of thumb, driving more straight ahead or towards the middle makes it easier for your partner as they're moving forward. But there might be instances where you want to drive the ball cross court because the player who's on the cross receiving your drive is very weak. If they're not a good volleyer, then you still might drive cross court. And you should probably tell your partner that, like, hey, I know cross court drives aren't usually great for you, but this player is really weak. So I am going to do it a little bit more. So maybe just hang back a little bit more so that you can see my cross court drive. And hopefully we'll create some mistakes off the drive by hitting to that weak player or get some really weak fourth shots where we can attack the next ball. But just be aware that I'm going to do it. So yeah, generally rule of thumb, drive a little bit straighter through the middle, unless there's a weak player on the cross court.
Yeah, it remind me like one of the semi-recent tournament when we went to and there's one player is like he's really not comfortable with counter the drive. And
Mhm.
then also we play to 11 points. So our game plan is okay, we just focus on that player, we just drive to him all day long. So
Mhm.
yeah, I find especially with tournament setting when the points are like shorts and this kind of strategy really works. And yeah, and another thing is I was at a Ottawa tournament, the APA tournament there, and I watched you guys play. You guys played really well. And for
Oh,
our audience there, and I don't know if you guys constantly go play tournaments or you go watch tournament. And one thing I noticed really helped my game is I actually in the tournament I watch the pro play the whole like throughout the whole day, and I will kind of put myself into that position. I will watch the ball and kind of thinking, okay, is that a ball I will drop it or is that a ball I will drive it?
yeah.
And then the mid-court, is it a pop-up ball? I'm gonna speed up, I'm gonna continue to drive. So I find it's helpful when you watch pro play live right behind them, kind of put yourself into their shoes, thinking, what will I be doing if I
Mhm.
were them with to handle that ball?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And the difference at the pro level, like the highest level is most of the time, high level players have all the shots, which allows them to play the right shot at the right time. So based on the ball they receive, they have the decision making skills to know what is the best option here, and then they have the technical skills to execute that tactic. Or they run into players that have particular weaknesses and they have the skills to play the right shot, which is a tactic, and then they have the technical skills to execute that tactic based on who's in front of them. So it's good to watch high level play critically like that, like put yourself in their shoes and be like, would I have hit the same shot there? Or like, okay, that looked like the right shot to hit. Would I be able to do that if I was in the same situation? And sometimes, it depends, but this is why, even for intermediate level players, like that's why you want to sort of train a well-rounded game is train different tactics and make sure you have some of the basic technical fundamentals to execute different tactics so that when you get into a tournament match and you run into a particular style of play from your opponents, you have the ability to change your tactics or modify your game plan accordingly if you need to. So, I mean, it's easier said than done, but you and I had this conversation recently about, you know, you want to be sure that they're always related to a particular tactic. And then you want to make sure you train different tactics and then also train your decision-making skills because when a pickleball point is unfolding in real time, you need to be highly adaptable. So you have different feels, different techniques based on the ball that's coming at you and the ball you want to send back. And it's, sort of rare that you hit the same shot twice in a row in pickleball. Like it happens more with like dinking. Like maybe if you get into a cross-court dinking exchange, there you're hitting some pretty similar feeling shots, but often you're hitting a different shot every time you hit the ball. It's a different feeling. You're sending the ball in a different direction, a different height, a different speed. You're in a different position of the court. So you have to train realistically when you're drilling. You have to make sure you train all different situations and try to make it realistic where you don't know exactly what ball is coming and you have to make different decisions and then adapt your technique to the tactic you're using. And in an ideal world, you have the tactical awareness and the technical skills to implement different tactics at a fairly good level. Um, that's sort of the ideal. That's I think what we're all striving for. And that again, that way, when we get into tournament play and we face different styles of players, we have the skills tactically and technically to implement different game plans or different shots to sort of counteract the strengths or weaknesses from the opponents.
Yeah, thank you. So these are so helpful tips. And before we wrapping up today's episode, would you suggest, is there any kind of a drill we can work on this kind of drive and drive combo? Or I shouldn't say, like, I think it's probably wrong to predetermine, say, I have to drive, 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 right? Like you drive the first, you have to judge your first ball and then decide what you do, drive or drop. So so is there any kind of specific drill we can work on that?
Yeah, yeah. So what you can do is you can chunk the training this way for this particular tactic. And again, we've talked about like you have to get lots of repetition on particular shots to develop the ability to execute with consistency and effectiveness. So you want to develop a particular shot, get the repetition, get the feel and the technical skills on that one shot. But then you have to make it more realistic at some point where there's a decision to be made, and maybe the technique or the feel you have changes based on the ball you receive. So one way you could train this is you train where, let's say you have a partner and it's just you and a partner doing a drilling session. You can go half court where your partner feeds you sort of like a weak ball. So let's pretend they're feeding like a weak return of serve. So you drive your third shot. We'll say it's a third shot drive. So you drive the third shot from around the baseline, and obviously you should be trying to keep that ball low. And then you ask the partner to try to produce like a bit of a weak fourth shot volley that
Mhm.
allows you to drive the fifth. So you say, okay, give me a sort of weak return of serve that I can drive my third. And you're doing this half court straight ahead. You could also do it cross court, but probably do better do it straight ahead half court. So you drive your third, you ask them to give you a weak fifth, and then you drive that fifth and then like continue the point and play it out. So it's
Yeah.
like third shot drive, fifth shot drive, compete and play it out. Then after that, you could say, okay, now we're going to do a third shot drive, fifth shot drop. So you do the third shot drive, fifth shot drive for say 5 minutes,
Yeah.
and then change to third shot drive, fifth shot drop. So even if he gives you an easy ball that you could have driven with your fifth, you still drop the fifth. So you get used to that pattern of drive, drop, and maybe you ask them to purposely try and keep the ball low and short so that it forces you to drop because that's pretty realistic. So then you practice that situation for say 5 minutes. So drive, drop, play out the point. Then you could do as the third sort of part to this drill is you drive your third and then you allow the partner to hit any type of volley, like make it realistic. Just say hit your best volley.
Yeah.
And then you have to make a decision on your fifth shot. Do you drop it or you drive it? And really what you're looking to do is hit a good low drive on the third, and then you maybe step forward a little step, anticipating sort of like a somewhat short volley from your opponent. If the ball sits up high, maybe you look to drive the fifth. Or if the ball sits up high and short, you look to drive the fifth. If the ball stays low or low and short, you look to drop the fifth, and then you play out the point. So basically, with any skill, a good way to train is this. You close it off. So there's no decision making, and you get a lot of repetition on one particular tactic and shot so that you
Yeah.
can develop the technical skills to execute the tactic. Then change to another frequently occurring option. So it's like, okay, now I'm going to train the other shot. I'm going to train the drop, train that, a particular amount of time, 5 minutes, let's say. And now it's like, okay, let's add some variability where I have to adapt my tactic based on the ball that I receive, and it changes the technique I have to use. And then, that's how you train it is close the drill off and then open it up where there's a decision-making element to it so that you have to adapt because that's what a real game is. You have to make decisions, you have to adapt your technique to the decision and then execute that tactic. And you have to do this shot after shot after shot. So there
Amazing.
you go.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a perfect wrap up of today's episode. And so the lovely audience, please go follow us, subscribe us on the YouTube and on other podcast platform. And same time, we're looking forward to chat with you again in next week. Thank
All
you.
right. Thanks for having me, Lily. We'll see you next week.
Definitely. Thank you. Bye.